the record run here of silver. The reasons for concern are different. I mean, I'm long. I'm delighted to see silver finally reach a nominal all-time high and stay there. This is a big deal. Like the 2011 spike or the 1980 spikes, those were up intraday and right back down again afterwards. So this is already different. It's staying here. So, that's pretty exciting, pretty encouraging. On the other paw, it's not just there because of, financial things or de-dollarization or, there's talk about maybe central banks are going to start buying silver, and a few oddities aside, I really don't think that's the case. This isn't a Basel III thing. No, I mean, industrial use cases are not a bad thing. And yes, they can be volatile. But ultimately, I see silver as relatively cheaper than gold still. It's, if I can't say gold is a buy low, sell high opportunity, at least silver is only nominally at all-time highs, whereas gold has already reached real all-time highs, or at least real, according to the CPI. So there's a different case there. And the additional tailwinds from the industrial use, the Trump agenda is inflationary. Europe's remilitarization is inflationary. The global average is inflationary, which is good for silver too. So I've been saying I see silver as the win-win metal because it gets the benefit from the monetary side, the debasement trade. Isn't it striking, Jesse, that Wall Street is caught on to monetary debasement? The debasement trade has become the latest buzzword on mainstream financial media. Gold bugs are like, what have we been saying for decades? Right? But now it's become the trendy thing. Like silver benefits from that, as well as the electrification trend and these other factors. So
silver briefly touched $54 an ounce, hitting all-time highs in nominal terms before retracing to the $48 range. But unlike the 1980 and 2011 spikes that crashed back down within hours, this time it's different. This time, silver is staying at these levels. And the reason why should concern every investor holding traditional assets. Today, we'll hear from Lobo Tiggre, the independent speculator who's been tracking metals markets for decades. What he reveals will challenge everything you thought you knew about the silver market. The question is, are you positioned for what's coming next? Let's begin. Let's start with a shocking reality. London, the epicenter of global precious metals trading, is experiencing a physical silver shortage. Not a paper shortage, not a futures squeeze, an actual, tangible shortage of physical silver bars. Lobo Tiggre put it perfectly. There is not enough physical in London right now. Imagine if somebody had asked you a couple years ago if you predicted not enough bars in London, what would you have said? It's amazing to see it happen. And here's where this story gets fascinating. For years, silver bulls tried to organize retail squeezes. Reddit investors attempted it. Online communities rallied around it. Every single attempt fizzled. The market was simply too big, the retail crowd too small to move the needle. But then something unexpected happened. Donald Trump, whether intentionally or not, manufactured what silver bulls could never achieve, a bona fide physical squeeze. The U.S. president included silver in the critical minerals list amidst shortening silver supply. Also, his tariff policy caused a lot of bullion to leave the LBMA and go to the U.S. in anticipation of a shock in the physical silver markets, thereby causing a silver market squeeze. This isn't speculation. The market structure proves it. Silver is trading in backwardation, meaning spot prices are higher than futures prices. London prices are elevated compared to COMEX. These are textbook signs of physical shortage. Bank of America just called for $65 silver in 2026, titling their research. Bank of America now sees $65 silver as price spike reduces London market to a state of seizure. A state of seizure, let that phrase sink in. Now, Tiggre made a crucial point about why this matters for the broader bull market. If silver was simply catching up to gold right now, doing that classic end-of-cycle outperformance, that would signal this bull run is ending. But it's not. Silver is responding to a specific physical supply crisis. That's actually bullish for longevity. He said, It's a relief to me that what seems to be going on is a silver-specific kerfuffle in London right now. I'm hopeful that we go on to a more regular march upwards. That would be much better for the longevity of this market. And here's why this squeeze could persist. Silver isn't optional for manufacturers. Solar panel companies, electronics makers, they can't just substitute aluminum or copper. They need silver. Period. Lobo Tiggre believes we could see a CPI-adjusted real all-time high. That's over $200 an ounce using conservative government inflation numbers within a month or two. Will it happen? He doesn't know. But could it? Absolutely. And that possibility alone should make every investor pay attention. Let's get into the video, but before we do, please like, share, subscribe, and check our other videos to help you create a well-informed precious metals strategy. Thank you.
But the point is, Trump shock is alive and well. That has yet really to work its way through the real economy. So there is, I'm not calling a recession because don't forget the money helicopters, but there's reason to be concerned about weakness. So that's still on the table. As far as the record run here of silver, the reasons for concern are different. I mean, I'm long. I'm delighted to see silver finally reach a nominal all-time high and stay there. This is a big deal. Like the 2011 spike or the 1980 spikes, those were up intraday and right back down again afterwards. So this is already different. It's staying here. So, that's pretty exciting, pretty encouraging. On the other paw, it's not just there because of, financial things or de-dollarization or, there's talk about maybe central banks are going to start buying silver, and a few oddities aside, I really don't think that's the case. This isn't a Basel III thing. The central banks are not the poor man. They don't need to worry about the poor man's gold. And silver tarnishes. They don't need to spend time polishing those bars in the basement. It's not as easy to keep. It's bulkier and more temperamental than gold is. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't see the central banks piling into silver. But we do have right now a squeeze in London. There's not enough physicals there right now. And so that's, it's not just driving things, but it's why we have that backwardation. It's why spot is higher than the futures, London versus COMEX. So it's possible that sticks around for a long time, but silver is still being mined quite actively. It's a byproduct. So I suspect that it won't stick around that long. Now, it's also been declared a critical mineral, at least by the United States. So it's not as easy as just put some silver back on the airplanes and send it over to London. So what am I saying here? What I'm saying is it's exciting to see silver run up like this, but it's actually a relief to me that there seems to be a bona fide squeeze going on in the physical market right now that's causing it. And why that's a relief is because if silver was finally catching up to gold, any gold or silver bull will tell you that silver usually lags and then catches up to gold at the end of the bull market. It more than catches up to gold. So if silver was doing that more than catches up bit right now, that would be a signal that this bull run is coming to an end. And as a fundamentalist, I don't think that's the case. As a long, I don't want that to be the case. Mr. Market doesn't care what I want, but I'm relieved. That's why I'm relieved that what seems to be going on is a silver-specific kerfuffle in London right now. And then I'm hopeful that we go on to a more regular march upwards. That would be much better for the longevity of this market. Irony to me here is that, silver bulls, they really tried. And they tried to organize. They tried to sort of crowdsource a silver squeeze. There was more than one attempt, and they all fizzled. It's too big. There's not enough of us diehard hard money advocates. People like you and I, and even our audience, the entire audience. We're such a tiny slice of the overall investment world, let alone the population at large. We just couldn't swing it. But Donald Trump, love him or hate him, like he has actually manufactured a bona fide silver squeeze. Like there is not enough physical in London right now, which imagine if somebody had asked me or if you had talked about this with any of your guests a couple of years ago, and they predicted not enough bars in London, what would you have said? What would you have thought? I don't know, but it's amazing to see it happen, and it's a byproduct. I don't think Trump intended for this. This wasn't a design to produce a silver squeeze. He included silver in the critical minerals list, and he talked up all his tariffs and things, and a lot of bullion left London and went to the U.S. And now suddenly there's a squeeze going on. So that's real. It's physical, and it's kind of fun to see. You were polite enough to ask the second part of your question by saying, could it? To which I answered yes. Will it is a much more difficult question to answer and be right about. So will it? I don't know. But could it? Yeah. If this squeeze continues, and don't forget that the manufacturers, the solar panel people and the electronics people who use silver in their real world applications, this isn't optional. They can't just substitute aluminum or copper or something for these functions. Well, I guess you can make aluminum mirrors, but for the solar panels, you need the silver, right? So there is a I can't put a number on it. I want to say a probability because for a probability you have to have your P's and Q's and divide them and get a ratio. We don't know what those numbers are. But there's not just a non-zero, but I would say, let's say, a non-trivial possibility that as that physical supply demand continues, as the physical demand continues from the actual real world users, and not enough people are bringing in grandma's tea service, right, to supply that we could see this melt up. So yes. Could we see a CPI adjusted real all-time high? Yeah, we could. That could happen within a month or two. Will it? God only knows, Certainly not I, said the wolf. It could be that the current surge has induced the various participants to change, and it resolves itself soon. I really don't know, and I wouldn't believe anybody who did say that anyway.
Now let's talk about something most investors don't understand about silver, something that makes this squeeze potentially much more severe than people realize. Most silver isn't mined as a primary product, it's a byproduct, and the implications of this are profound. The single highest producer of silver as a byproduct is actually copper. Lead and zinc also can produce silver in relatively smaller quantities, and this is where most of the world's silver comes from. For silver bulls, this is actually great news. Here's why. Even if gold producers ramp up production to meet market demand, that will have only marginal impact on silver supply. The real silver supply comes from copper, lead, and zinc mines, and those take years, even decades, to bring to market. So here's the scenario. Copper could go to the moon tomorrow, and it would have zero impact on silver supply right away. Even in the medium term, say, 2 to 3 years out, when those copper projects start ramping up production, they'll be adding to silver supply. But by then, if the monetary demand continues, if the $120 trillion debt crisis forces currency debasement, the supply response will be too little, too late, and an inflationary environment with physical shortages provides the perfect scenario for commodities, especially gold and silver, to explode. We're not in a normal market cycle. We're in a paradigm shift. Let's get back to the video.
So the most sensitive one here would be silver as a byproduct from gold. Obviously, they occur together a lot. They're mined together, and a gold miner right now is incented to ramp up his or her output anyway, right? So that miner will respond to the higher silver price and the higher gold price, which are moving in the same direction. But that's actually pretty small. The base metals are a much larger fraction. I understand it's something like 60%. And if you pick them by the metal, the single highest producer of silver as a byproduct is actually copper. If you add lead and zinc together, which they commonly occur together, lead and zinc combined are the big one. But if you add all of those together, lead, zinc, and copper, it's huge. This really is where most of the world's silver comes from. I think until recently, the Polish copper miner was the world's biggest producer of silver. And so that tells you a lot. I mean, that's just one company, but it tells you about the structure of the market. So for silver bulls, this is actually good news. It means, okay, even if the gold producers ramp up to meet the market, that will have a marginal impact on silver. Yes, it will produce more silver, but not as much as if copper were going through the roof and copper producers were ramping up. And the even better news is that even if copper does go through the roof, which I do expect, and I'm sure you'll ask about in due course, these copper mines take a long time. Like one big enough to matter, they're a little high-grade underground bits here and there, but they don't move the market. These great big, mega pit projects that are where the world's big copper supply comes from, those take years, even if you have the permits, which can take years or even decades, right? Looking for a resolution there. Once you even have the permits, it takes years to build these gigantic mega projects. So, copper could go to the moon, tomorrow, and it would have zero impact on the silver supply right away. Now, in due course, though, it would. In due course, especially if the safe haven demand were to go down, Trump fixes everything and the world is happy, happy, joy, joy. And, I don't see that as a likely outcome. But if it happened, right, and monetary safe haven demand went down for silver at the same time that industrial output was cranking up, that would actually be bearish for silver. Not a concern I have right now. Right now, it's the opposite. I'm the only shadow on the horizon for me, other than, hockey stick always calls for caution. But in terms of market fundamentals, I'm a fundamentalist, not a chartist, is silver does have its industrial side as a use, not as a byproduct on the use side. And if Trump shock does cause more economic weakness, that turns into a headwind for silver that does not affect gold. So that's something to watch out for. That's not a call. It's not a prediction, because don't forget the money helicopters. But it's something to watch for. If it materializes, then it's reason for caution. I am and I am not. I'm not buying any gold or silver stocks right now. I've for the first time in my career as the independent speculator, I have yanked my shopping list completely. Just because, the better ones, they're, if not at 52-week highs, all-time highs, they're the hockey stick thing. And the whole idea is to buy low, sell high. Now, I'm not saying it can't or won't go higher. I'm just saying this is not a buy low moment. And markets fluctuate. So I've never done it before. I have no shopping list this month. That said, I'm already long. So I'm not feeling any FOMO, right? I've got tons of gold and silver in my portfolio already. So if it keeps screaming upwards, fine by me. I'm fine with that. But yeah, it would be very difficult for me to say to anybody who's brand new to the space, just coming in, sure, fine, it's got to keep going to the moon. Bye, bye, bye. You can hurt a lot of people doing that, Jesse. I mean, even if it does eventually go higher, if the next big leg is actually down, those Johnny-come-latelys, they will panic, they will sell, they will have bought high and sold low, and they will be hurt. And I don't want to encourage that to happen. So no shopping list in gold and silver this month. That said, is there a case to pile in? Actually, there is. Not as a disciplined speculator. I am not doing this. I'm just saying, if you've got Vegas money, you want to gamble, instead of going to Vegas and pulling the slot machine, there is a chance that we go into the mania phase. Like the next big move could be the mania phase. If that happens, gold and silver stocks will go much higher. And by the way, the Johnny-come-latelys, they'll pile into what Doug Casey used to call the go-to stocks first, not the crappy little juniors. So you could get more alpha, ironically, on the bigger stocks in that mania phase, because that's where the dumb money, pardon me, but the Johnny-come-latelys, that's where they'll pile into. They'll say, oh, what's a gold company? And they'll do a Google search, and you and I both know, and the audience knows who's going to come up, right? What's a silver company, right? They'll find them. So there is a case to be made for those with a hankering for high stakes gambling. I mean, there could be an explosive move, could be the next thing. An explosive move upwards could be the next thing that hits this market. So if you like gambling on that sort of thing, I'm not going to say no. I'm saying I'm not doing it because I'm not trying to swing for the bleachers here. I am trying to consistently, as reliably as possible, make money over time. And the way to do that is to buy low and sell high, not to buy high and hope to sell higher. And to the, I think I lost track of your 5 questions, but I think the ending question was basically when to sell high.
Yeah.
And I'm not smart enough to figure that out. I don't know when the market is going to top. Even my mentors, Rick Rule, Doug Casey, none of them claim to know that. I think anybody, no offense to any chartists in the audience, anybody that's convinced that they're Fibonacci this, that, or the other says, oh, it's got to go down now or up now. I think that's dangerous. It's worth taking under advisement, but to believe it like the gospel is dangerous, I think. So what I do, and we've talked about this before, I think, Jesse, is I have a strategy I call the Upside Maximizer. That's a free report on our website, if you don't mind me mentioning it. And it's like a stop loss, except for instead of a stop loss, it's a trailing ratcheting stop on my wins so that I don't have to know when the market tops. If things roll over, then I get triggered. And at the very least, I can recover my initial investment and be risk-free. Or if things are looking scary, I can, take a lot more, all of my profits, and leave just, or if they're all getting triggered, it's not just this company, but like the market is rolling over, I might be much more aggressive and like close positions and exit in a bigger way to be able to, and then I'll have cash to buy back in if it's just a dip, or I'll be out of harm's way if the next real move is a bear market. I'm not predicting that. I'm not calling that. I'm saying I don't know, but I have a method for making sure that all these big wins we're all enjoying don't slip through my claw. I mean, industrial use cases are not a bad thing. And yes, they can be volatile, but ultimately I see silver as relatively cheaper than gold still. It's, if I can't say gold is a buy low, sell high opportunity, at least silver is only nominally at all-time highs, whereas gold has already reached real all-time highs, or at least real, according to the CPI. So there's a different case there. And the additional tailwinds from the industrial use, the Trump agenda is inflationary. Europe's remilitarization is inflationary. The global average is inflationary, which is good for silver too. So I've been saying I see silver as the win-win metal because it gets the benefit from the monetary side, the debasement trade. Isn't it striking, Jesse, that Wall Street is caught on to monetary debasement? The debasement trade has become the latest buzzword on mainstream financial media. Gold bugs are like, what have we been saying for decades, right? But now it's become the trendy thing. Like silver benefits from that, as well as the electrification trend and these other factors. So, people call me Darth Silver and all that stuff, but I'm actually quite bullish on silver.
But ask yourself, when Harvard's endowment, Morgan Stanley's strategists, Goldman Sachs, Bank of America, and investors who have navigated 50 years of market cycles are all saying the same thing amidst a physical silver shortage in London for the first time anyone can remember, shouldn't you at least investigate? The train is leaving the station, but as Tiggre emphasized, it's a long train. There will be opportunities to board if you're patient and disciplined. The worst thing you can do is chase it recklessly and fall off. The question isn't whether this paradigm shift is happening. It is. The question is whether you'll navigate it with intelligence, discipline, and proper risk management. Post in the comment section down below your honest opinion. Share this video with someone who needs to hear this. Subscribe and click the notification button to get more updates. Thank you for watching.